You there, Knife?
Part one, and they're sort of up on the bits we do now because we're on to I think it's Article 13 tonight. So we're trying to get through to Article 20. I would like everybody to welcome w.h.o. We've got an international guest tonight. He's going to be speaking to us from across the pond, away from America. As this document actually is a global, it's going to affect us globally. This affects every single country that they can get their hands on. So thank you for Wayne. If you'd like to introduce yourself and tell people a bit about yourself.
Good evening, gentlemen. I'm living in Florida, and I'm pushing or dragging 69, almost 70, and I've seen a lot of stuff come on, and some of this stuff is beginning to get pretty wild. And this, in my opinion, this is nothing but an attempt to control you. We'll go on from there.
Oh yeah, nothing but. Yeah, nothing but. Right. Without further ado, let's bring up. Let me just get it up on screen. I mean, I've actually read through most of this document, and it gets worse. I mean, if you think part one was bad, that's what will just hit you in the stomach, but the rest of it just gets worse and worse. What they're actually proposing in here is abhorrent.
Yep. You've got no rights, you'll have no dignity, and you'll have no freedoms. You'll read yourself, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, as we've seen in part one, they've already got rid of like your right to dignity, your right to human rights that you never really had in the first place anyway. And it goes on. It gets worse and worse and worse. So without further ado, I shall start reading it, and then we'll discuss each of it as we go through. Article 13, public health response. Okay, so this will be the response that they give to any what they deem as a public health risk. 1. Each state party shall develop, strengthen and maintain as soon as possible, but no later than 5 years from the entry into force of these regulations, for that state party the capacity to respond promptly and effectively to public health risks and public health emergencies of international concern, as set out in Annex 1. We'll get to them later on in the document. Who shall publish, in consultation with member states, guidelines to support states parties in the development of public health response capacities. They've added, as we said before, anything underlined is added, anything struck through is taken away. So they've added developed state parties and who shall offer assistance to developing state parties depending on the availability of finance, technology and know-how for the full implementation of this article in pursuance of the Article 44. Well, in a nutshell, what we're seeing there is basically it's sort of like what we had with the EU when we was in the EU. The rich countries are going to have money siphoned from them, and they're going to basically be putting them into the poorer countries. And some people say it's a good thing, put into poorer countries. If it was for infrastructure and to actually build a country, yes, but this is not. This is to build a centralised infrastructure. So they're already telling you that this is their plan. They're going to take from the rich countries, and that they're going to use public money, basically taxpayers' money, to build an infrastructure in developing countries with developed countries' money. So this isn't their money. This is not off the good of their hearts. You're going to be paying for all of this.
Yeah. You cannot have a new world order unless everybody's up to scratch technology-wise. So what they do, it's called a transfer of wealth. So they transfer all your wealth, give it to the third world countries, etc., to build them up, to build their cities up, to put their technology up to scratch, because obviously they can't have a new world order, say in Zimbabwe or somewhere where they ain't got a surveillance system, etc. So that's what your money will go towards propping up.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, I've read through this document, and as we go through it, you're going to see everything that me and Gary have been saying for numerous years, not just like within the EU treaties, but international treaties. It's like me and Wayne was speaking about earlier, wasn't it, Wayne? They've done bit by bit by bit. They've spread it out across loads of bits, and it all merges to the same thing. This is centralised control. They intend to control everything from a little hub. So literally, say Brussels is basically going to be it. So from Brussels, they will control the world. And when they manage to centralise our NHS and everything like that, they will implement these systems, and it's called total surveillance. This is what the smart cities and smart technology is for. This is why they're rolling this out as quick as possible, because this is the way they're actually going to surveil us and track us.
Yeah. Is there anything like this going on in America, the way?
Oh, definitely. That old saying, how can you tell if they're lying? Their lips are moving.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, this is the thing. This document is global. This is meant for the global community. So this is every single country. So, I mean, here in England alone, we're already seeing in Oxford, we're seeing roadblocks basically, and the limiting of your freedom of movement. I mean, are you starting to see stuff like that in America?
Oh, definitely. They're already talking about a new crackdown, want you to mask up for RSV, residual virus, very common flu virus, and they're already talking. They want people to start masking up and locking down for a virus that comes virtually every single year, and they're wanting to lock us down and shut us up and shut down schools again. And if you keep shutting down schools, you get stupid kids, which turn into stupid adults who fall for this crap that they're trying to preach.
Yep. It's not just that as well. One of our main sources for our herd immunity is actually children going to school and spreading bacteria and bringing it home. It's one of the main bacteria spreaders. So this is how we actually gain herd immunity and actually fight the things like the common respiratory diseases that we're seeing them flag up. Because they're doing the same over here. I mean, in part one, we've already heard that it will be any disease, anything that means. So, like the Ranger said, the common cold happens every year across every country. So they can call that an international emergency now. That was in part one. So shutting down schools, all that's going to do is damage immunity. So we are going to be forced through the shutting down of schools, shutting down of systems. It's going to destroy our immunity. So therefore, they're going to try and push us towards vaccines.
Yeah. But on the upside of that, though, if your kids are not at school in this day and age, at least they ain't, you've got to watch these bloody drag queens coming in and reading them stories, etc. Like that. So it actually gives you the chance to talk to your children and try and get them away from the mind control what's pumped into them from 9 o'clock in the morning till 3:30 in the afternoon. When they come home, it's absolutely abhorrent, that is, and why people are standing for it. I seen it the other day where they was taking children, they still ain't learned, they're still taking the children to see these drag queens. And when I say drag queen, I mean you couldn't dress any more skimpier, if you know what I mean, Nath, and it's vile to watch.
Well, the whole society is being changed, so it's one of them. Right, part number 2. Following the assessment referred to in paragraph 2, part A of Annex 1, which is at the end of this document, we'll get to it, a state party may report to WHO on the basis of a justified need and implementation plan, and in doing so obtain an extension of 2 years in which to fulfil the obligation in paragraph 1 of this article. In exceptional circumstances and supported by a new implementation plan, the state party may request a further extension not exceeding 2 years from the Director General, who shall, and this has been taken out, make the decision. So the Director General won't make this decision. Refer the issue to World Health Assembly, which will then take a decision on the same. Now, some people would say that's a good thing, but these are unelected, unaccountable bureaucrats, basically. A couple of them got, well, most of them got a PhD or things like that, or quite a few of them actually haven't. But again, unelected bureaucrats are going to decide whether the common cold is enough to shut your life down. Taking into account, taking into account the technical advice of the review committee after the period mentioned in paragraph 1 of this article, the state party that has obtained an extension shall report annually to WHO on progress made towards the full implementation.
The scary part of that again is it's one man. That one man,
that's
general, could make the decision. You don't have to consult anybody. Just say to them, "This needs to happen," and everybody's got to do it. That's terrible. That is. It's a dictatorship.
Gone too far. Well, this is the thing. In that paragraph, it says it's not going to be one man do it. It's going to be put to like. It's basically like a version of the EU Commission. So it's not a vote from the people. It's not a reaction from the people to it. This is going to be, again, just a board of people who are unaccountable. They're elected. So they're going to be picked by whoever, probably the Director General, to whoever's going to actually do the bidding of whatever they want. I mean, we've already said in part 1, they're just giving themselves carte blanche. I mean, look at this. I mean, 2 reasons. Who shall provide to state parties standardised forms for collaboration in the implementation of collaboration as provided in paragraph 1A of the Article 44 to facilitate state parties? Mutual collaboration essential for the effective implementation of public health response. Just telling that it's going to be a standardised form. So it's going to be one rule for the whole of the world. So regardless of what you feel, what you think, or your beliefs or anything like that, it's going to be a standardised thing. They're not taking it. You mean remember your dignity, your human rights, everything has been completely removed already in part 1 of this that we did. Mm-hmm. So this is just reaffirming again and again and again. They are basically, there's going to be a group of people who are probably, I would say, a good likelihood have gone through the W.h.o University and other little boards and certain bits like that, and they're going to actually start deciding whether or not a common cold is enough to completely shut down your life.
Yeah.
This is ridiculous.
And you will just do it told because they've removed everything you've got. So it's just we'll say and you'll do. That's it. No discussion, nothing.
No, that's it. It's going to be a standardised form across the whole board. That's it. Just like a sweeping hand, basically. Number 3, this is being taken out. What used to be at the request of a state party, but now it's the WHO shall. It's not even collaborate. They've taken out the WHO shall articulate clearly defined assistance to a state party, offer assistance to a state party in the response to public health risks and other events by providing technical guidance. And they've added health products, i.e. PPE, vaccines, technologies, tracking, know-how, deployment of civil medical personnel. Well, we've already seen that. This is civil medical personnel. This is what we're seeing with the jab centres and stuff like that. And assistance, and by assessing the effectiveness of the control measures in place, including the mobilisation of internal teams of experts for on-site assistance when necessary. And they've added this bit, a big chunk, and if required, cooperate with said member state in seeking support and international financial assistance to facilitate the containment of the risk at source. The state party shall accept or reject such an offer of assistance within 48 hours and, in the case of rejection of such an offer, shall provide to WHO its rationale for the rejection, which WHO shall share with other state parties. The state party shall accept or reject such an offer of assistance within 48 hours. To provide WHO a rationale of rejection, which the WHO shall share with other state parties, who will also share any request for assistance by the affected state party that could not be met by WHO. I mean, that's worrying in itself.
Yeah. And don't forget, when they're talking about containment of the risk at source, that is you, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, that is you in your 15-minute communities.
Yeah, that is you. Example, if you're resisting a jab or something like that, that's when they are coming in and containing the risk. That's you. Stop you kicking off.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, when you couldn't really put it in any simpler terms to what they're actually trying to do here, and actually they're planning to do and gonna do. Right, number 4. If who, in the consultation with state parties concerned, as provided in Article 12, determines that a public health emergency of international concern is occurring, it used to be may, but it shall offer, in addition to the support indicated in paragraph 3 of this article, further assistance to the state party, including assessment of the severity of the international risk and adequacy of control measures. Such collaboration may include the offer to mobilise international assistance in order to support the national authorities in conducting and coordinating on-site assessments. When requested by state party, who shall provide information supporting such an offer? The state party, this has been added, the state party shall accept or reject such an offer of assistance within 48 hours and, in the case of rejection of such an offer, shall provide who its rationale for the rejection, which who shall share with other state parties regarding on-site assessments in, and then it's blank. So I don't know what I said, but some of these redactions aren't there. In revised submission received on 28th of October 2022, the submitting state parties purposes the following edits to 2BS. Who shall provide to state parties standardised forms for facilitating the implementation of collaboration as provided in paragraph 1A of Article 44 to facilitate state parties. Mutual collaboration, which is essential for the effective implementation of public health response. I mean, that in itself, I mean, they're just, you mean, again, you're going to, in this document, and it does do it, it repeats itself over and over again with the same thing. It always comes back to the same thing. Compliance with this national law, say national law, a state party shall make reasonable efforts to facilitate short-term access to relevant sites. In the event of a denial, it shall provide its rationale for the denial of access. I mean, that's basically telling you that it's like, well, we're going to give you 48 hours to sort of say, no, we don't need help. But you've then got to give the who and whoever they want to put in there means to go in and decide for themselves. And if you haven't, by now, if you haven't gathered in the wording, when they say standardised, it means that they're going to talk to every other member state and get their member states to then go against that one member state. So this is all about pressure.
Is this document known in America, Veron? Wayne, sorry.
That's all right. They're working on closing everything down, and they are working to make sure that you will obey or you will pay. It's kind of hard to explain, but it's that slow strangulation thing. Every little bit, they just turn the ratchet just a little bit tighter, and then the sheep get used to, you know, at first the people argue and fight about it, but eventually they give in. And the next thing you know, you're no longer out in the pasture, you're in the stew pot.
Well, this is it. They're doing it everywhere. I mean, we like we were discussing earlier, right? It's like we've already seen the response that you're going to see from Canada and Australia. I mean, it's like take cryptocurrency. Everyone has said that's the safest houses. It can't be touched. Well, look at Canada. Look at Australia. Crypto wallets was stopped. They was actually just stopped there and then. Access was denied. So I understand that the power they've already got. Now, when they actually get these implementations in place and all these smart devices and the tracking and the responses they want, it will literally, I mean, it will make China look like it's just it will make China look silly, really. China will be, everyone will want to go there because it will be literally easier to live there than anywhere else in the world. This is going to be with surveillance. This is going to be with your phone. This is going to be from lampposts. It's everything. Anything to do with smart technology is the infrastructure that they are building for this. It is total surveillance.
Yeah. You're basically going to have no peace, ladies and gentlemen, because every time they change something, you're going to have to jump through the heap because, like Nathan said in part 1, they've already removed all your rights, all your liberty, all your freedom, your dignity. You've removed it all. You've got nothing left because you've allowed it to happen.
Yep. It's the same as it's happening in the States with like Ryan saying. It's like it's bit by bit. At the moment, they're saying they're trialing cities, but most people think it's only Oxford. There's other ones. There's Canterbury. There's quite a few. I mean, even Ramsgate, they're trying to implement certain bits now, like speed limits and stuff like that. I mean, there's they're gonna do lots of things. Smart motorways, a whole lot. They're going after private cars by the end of 2023. This is all. Don't think these are separate things, and don't think this is not going to happen, because I hear that a lot. It's like, well, they can't do that. It's like, well, unless you do something to stop them, they can, because they're doing it. They're putting this smart technology in. I mean,
they can do it because, like you've said, they've already took all the rights and liberties in every way, and nobody's done nothing in part one. So once it gets to this stage here, you've already lost all of them. So they can do it because you've already caved in with everything else. You've already let them take everything away from you.
Well, this is exactly it, and this is why people really do need to understand their legal fiction, and the fact that, I mean, it's like, legally we have no fight against this. They have sewn this up. The only way to actually fight against this is like the same with America, same with England. It's like, we've got to use our constitution. It's the only thing that is powerful enough and our sovereignty to override this. But you can't sit back and do nothing about it. You actually have to submit pen to paper and actually uphold your rights. Acquiescence is consent. So petitions to the government is not going to happen. This document's already telling you the governments have already agreed this. So if you think a petition to a government is going to stop this, it's not, because they've already agreed it. They agreed it in November.
The only thing that's going to stop this is non-compliance.
Yes, it's going to be. I mean, actually, America's got Magna Carta as well, so it could be 61 across the board. Really, I mean, Article 61 is the only thing that can, and it's most of the reason why America's actually got the power to take away from its government, because of 61. It's the king, so it's the very document that set it all out. No power is absolute. That mean they can only assume power if we give it to them, and if we assume they have power.
Most of our Constitution and Bill of Rights and all that stuff was based on the Magna Carta.
Yeah, and this is what they fear, and this is why, I don't know if you've noticed, for Wayne, but they're attacking the Constitution as well in America heavily.
I agree. I don't know if you get much access to American news, but every day they're going, we need now they're talking about putting term limits on our Supreme Court justices and age limits. And the only reason they're wanting to do that is so that they can eliminate most of the more conservative leaning Supreme Court justices and then put in a whole mess of airheads who are all good with the next step in the takeover of the world.
Yeah, I was actually reading a bit about that the other day. Actually, saying that they're doing this. They're literally doing the same here in Britain as well. Most judges, they don't. Basically, in a nutshell, they don't want somebody in a position of power, in a seat, that is capable of being there long enough to see what is being done and to understand what things used to be. That is like Wayne says. They want university graduates basically to go in, spend a few years like they would, like for instance, in a political party. They do their bidding, and then they're kicked out. It's like literally. I mean, they're even moving into because I know America's doing it, and I know England's doing it. They're actually trialing an AI version, and they're already doing this, by the way. But they're trialing an AI version of rulings for courts. So it's an AI that's determining your case. And then that is then being submitted to the judge as a credible source. It's happening in America and it's happening in England. I'm not too sure about Wales, Scotland, and Ireland, but I know it's happening in England. I know it's happening in America.
Basically, they don't want anybody in the courts, any judges in the courts, that have got a conscience, that will stand, when it's put before them, they will stand by the actual law of the land. They want people in, just yes men in there, who, even if you're 100% right, will still tell you you're wrong. That's what they want.
Well, take the AI, like judges in America and England, like basing their decisions on AI. This is the credit score system through the back door, but a very nefarious version of it, because you're going to go to court and an AI is basically going to determine through whatever, and they've already told you everything's going to be gathered. So what you type on a computer, where you go, who you speak to, that's all going to be collaborated and then that AI is going to decide on your score and the evaluation of you whether you are guilty or not. So it's kind of, I mean, in England and in America, we've got the presumption of innocence before guilt. This is, I mean, we're already seeing in England, I don't know about America, but we're already seeing in England with civil courts that it's presumption of guilt before innocence. This is going to be the total presumption before the fact. There's no arguing against this when it happens.
Yeah. I mean, after that last shooting recently, Wayne, have they come after your Second Amendment again? Because it was coming after it last year. It seemed to die down, but then you've had another shooting there recently in yourself.
They are doing everything they can to take away our weapons. And I keep telling people the First Amendment, the American Bill of Rights, is your freedom of speech. And that is protected by your Second Amendment, your right to bear arms. And nowhere in that bill does it say that your guns are only for going out. They're going, nobody needs this kind of gun to go hunting. Moron.
No, exactly it.
The context is they weren't talking about having a gun to go hunting. They were talking about a gun to protect you from the government.
Exactly. I mean, we have it's based on R1 and England, and they have it. Literally, it's like the Bill of Rights, where it be a Magna Carta Bill of Rights. It's like our Bill of Rights. There is no defining. I mean, the Bill of Rights in our country. I mean, we've got things like the constitutional right to protest. I mean, a lot of people going through court are not realising they're actually being put under the legal right to protest, not the constitutional right to protest. But they're actually trying to define our constitution, and this is when the problem comes. I mean, it's when they codify or recodify laws. Often it doesn't go well because all you're doing is shifting parameters. And like Ryan said, there is no wording in any of our constitutions where there is boundaries to our rights. They are just our rights.
Yeah.
And a lot of people giving that up for what they believe to be a legal right. And you don't have a legal right. Only your legal fiction does. Anything legal is in the fictional realm. It's commerce.
Yeah.
And as we've seen in part one, the only thing they really care about as far as travel and all stuff like that is their trade. And they say it numerous times in part one when we read it through. It's all about trade. So if you start getting a coffle code, if you're going to even remotely damage the chain of their trade, then that's it. You're classed as a risk. It's ridiculous.
They basically want every car off the road. So when the Arctics hit Dover or Folkestone, wherever, and then them travelling, they want them to have an empty motorway to travel on. So their goods get from A to B as quick as possible. And they don't want them stuck in traffic jams for 8 and 9 hours like they are at the moment. That's why they want you off the road. It's nothing to do with climate change and stuff like that. You're seen, like Nathan said, as inconvenience. You're in the way.
We'll take climate change. I mean, look at the definition of climate. Climate doesn't just mean the weather. That's what I think many people are getting kind of fooled. The climate could mean society, the way we live.
Current climate. You've heard them say many times.
Right. Anything you want to say on that before I move on, Brian?
I was forced to take my very first ecology class in 1970 in college. And I argued with that man, that professor, right down the line, because he was in 1970, he was saying by 1995, we'll all be living in igloos and it'll be so bloody cold, nobody's going to be able to go out and wander around. And I argued with him so much, he finally decided, look, I'll give you an A if you'll just stop coming to class. And because he says nobody else is learning anything. And I said, with what you're teaching, I don't want them to learn anything.
Yeah.
Well, this is the thing. Education is about learning. This is the thing. It hasn't been for, I'd say, nearly a century at least.
Yeah, but they're not teaching you now, are they, Nathan? The teaching you now is an agenda, to believe an agenda. That's what they're teaching you now. I mean, you ask anybody now who's leaving school now about World War II, they don't even know what World War II is, half of them, let alone who was involved. That stopped teaching the history, and that's done. And we all know why it was done, because the real truth of the World War II is not like it's supposed to be. But that's another thing. But you know, and that's why they're not teaching anymore, because they want that to disappear now, because people are finding the truth.
Well, yeah, I mean, the comparison again between England and America is unbelievable. I mean, similar tests were done to kids of a certain age, and most of them couldn't even recognise the Pope, Donald Trump. They recognised Beyonce, though. Most of them recognised Beyonce. So, I mean we've got to the point now where our kids will recognise a pop star, but not political figures or anything like that. So we get to the point where people won't even know who's actually ruling them.
Yeah. I mean, the other day in America, it was Kuwait, and this guy was asking the kids different things about, like, name 3 cities in Europe and stuff like that. And they couldn't even name 3 cities in Europe and stuff like that. It's shocking, that is, when you think about it. But they couldn't do it.
They stopped teaching. I'm going to back up here just a little bit. In 1980, or I think it was 91, my son was in 3rd or 4th grade, and he had just started. And all of a sudden, they stopped teaching everything. And I yanked him out of grade school, our 3rd grade, basically his 4th year in school. We yanked him out and homeschooled him, and they all tried to tell me he would end up not being well educated. Well, he was heavily recruited by the United States Air Force because he was top of his class, and he went on to go on through there. And now you've got a whole mess of kids, exactly what you said, don't know spit about geography because they don't teach it. They don't know spit about the government because they don't teach it. They want our kids to learn Spanish, but they haven't taught them any English, how to speak the English language. They want to get them off learning stupid stuff so that they can keep them, by the time that they're out of high school, out of grade school, they're too stupid and therefore are easier to handle.
Yeah. It's shocking.
Well, that's it. The whole education system. I mean, if people do the history education system, it's technically, they're called the Robber Barons, but it's pretty much the Rothschilds, Rockefellers. I mean, Rothschilds mainly. These are the people. It's like, I mean, most people of a certain age will remember things like the Oddfellows and stuff like that. It was actually the charge now that in charge of paying for the education system as we know it. Well, it used to be different. I mean, back in the 40s, 50s, education was a lot different to education in the 60s. And then it moved again in 83. It's like 20-year increments. They've just literally taken chunks and chunks away. It's not so much about teaching children how to learn. It's teaching children what to learn and, more importantly, what to regurgitate. I mean, we find it with many people. It's like, you won't know this too well, Rain, but it's like, you're Americans, you'll speak about your constitution. If myself and Gary speak about our constitution, even though there's statutes within our laws, we've still got people that it doesn't matter what you say, they try and label as a freeman of the land, because there was a freeman movement that kind of got things wrong, sort of fell on its face. So now it's kind of the new racist or the new bigot to call everyone a freeman of the land. And it just shows how ignorant these people are. I mean, these people argue that we have no constitution, but yet the government use it. We have constitutional statutes within our statute laws, but they will deny a constitution. And this is how they do it. And most of these people are victims of the education system because they know no better. That's why I kind of try to educate, but there's no educating some of them.
I mean, it started in this country, as you know, Nath, in the 50s when they took civics out, the curriculum. That's where it all started.
Yep.
And it's got from
that was the biggest swing in education, I think, apart from 83. I think the removal of civics in the 50s, that was the biggest swing in education I think England has ever had.
Yeah.
I mean, the only other thing that can relate to these is actually teaching children to read and write at a certain age. I mean, the history of education is absolutely abhorrent. If people actually did the right education and the right research, they'd understand this. But many won't, because they just regurgitate whatever they're told to regurgitate, and they don't even know they're told to regurgitate it. This is where we're at to. I mean, it doesn't matter if you can prove. It doesn't matter if Jacob Rees-Mogg has been in our parliament so many times quoting our constitution. You'll still have people who will deny it.
People,
I mean, you've got to ask questions.
What people don't realise as well, especially over here, Wayne, I don't know what it's like over your side of the pond, but over here especially, even when you're Googling stuff and that now, they've behind the scenes, they are changing the history. Because when you used to, I did it the other day to prove it, when you used to do a Google of the Russian Revolution, it was a violent, bloody revolution. Now when you do it, it says things like Vladimir Lenin was the leader of a mostly non-violent, peaceful overthrow of the government by the Russian people. And it's shocking when you see, because it wasn't peaceful at all. It was far from peaceful. But that's what they're doing behind people's backs on these websites.
Well, exactly. You don't hear a thing about what happened here in the States all through the summer of 2020, where they rioted, they burned, they killed, they robbed, they beat up people left and right. And it was all being done by leftist people. And you don't hear a thing about that. All that was mostly peaceful rioting. I guess if they were all raping, robbing, and stealing and destroying stuff, mostly peaceful. But I would suspect that you probably didn't take much, look at a dictionary very much to see that their terminology was improper.
Yeah,
that's an oxymoron if I've heard one. Peaceful rioting. Well, I bludgeoned him to death, but peacefully.
Exactly. I did it with love.
Yeah, unbelievable.
My heart was in the right place, so that's all that matters.
But ain't that shocking now that? And then when you're trying to teach kids the history, and you tell them one thing, and then they go and Google it or whatever, or Wikipedia it, and they say you're wrong, and then they're showing you're wrong. Look, it was peaceful, and this, that, and the other, and you're thinking, they've changed the history. Well, just like that, and nobody bats an eyelid.
Yeah.
Wikipedia used to be a good place to go for information, but now, if I can edit a Wikipedia page and you can edit a Wikipedia page, what good does that make Wikipedia?
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying, Wayne. You could tell a kid the truth now about, I don't know, the Allies bombing Dresden, or, like I said, the Russian Revolution. You could tell them the truth. When they go on the Wikipedia site, it tells them completely different. Now it tells them that, they deserved it and this, that, and the other. And it's far from the truth. And then they brainwash with that. So then you've got no chance of getting through to them now when they're reading stuff like that. And that's what they've done behind the scenes with most things now of history. They're wiping the history. And what was become violent was peaceful and non-concerning. It's horrendous how they've changed it.
I mean, I've got books sat behind me that are 100, 200 years old. But if you read in the history, which are official accounts and stuff like that, and then you read Wikipedia or do a Google search, it is so starkly different. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable.
I agree.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is people need, when they go on these sites, they need to take them with a pinch of salt, because they don't always tell you the truth of the true history. You get your true history from the archives, actual archives from back then when it was reported at the time. That's where you get your history from. Because that can't lie.
Exactly. It's like with the Second World. Oh, exactly. It's like the Second World War. I don't tend to go with the official narrative. It's like most of what I've learned from the Second World War, I learned from reading some of the war diaries, because that was a true, factual, first-person account. And that's something we don't seem to want to reference or source anymore. People don't like first-person or primary source. They prefer it when somebody else reevaluates it. I don't know. I don't understand it. Right. Number 5. This is particularly horrid, actually. When requested by WHO, state parties, we used to be should, but it's now shall provide, to the extent possible, support to WHO coordinated response activities, including supply of health products and technologies, especially diagnostics and other devices, personal protective equipment, therapeutics, and vaccines for effective response to the w.h.o occurring in other state parties, jurisdiction, and or territory. Again, the word territory. That's a very telling word, people. Capacity building for the incident management systems as well as for rapid response teams. Any state party unable to fulfill such requests shall inform the reasons for the same to WHO, and the Director General shall include the same in the report submitted to w.h.o. That's the World Health Authorities, under Article 54 of these regulations, including supply of health products and technologies, especially diagnostics and other devices, therapeutics and vaccines for effective response to the pandemics, basically. New 7. So, I mean, they've added so much to this. Measures taken by states parties shall not create barriers to or compromise the abilities of the other state parties to effectively respond to public health emergency of international concern, unless exceptional circumstance warrants such measures. States parties whose ability to respond are affected by the measures taken by other state party shall have the right to enter into consultation with the state party implementing such measures to find a solution at the earliest considering the country interest. 7. In case of any engagement with non-state actors in WHO's public health response to the pandemics, basically, public health, international public health, situation, WHO shall follow the provisions of framework for engagement of non-state actors. FENSA, look into that, FENSA. Any departure from FENSA provisions shall be consistent with paragraph 73 of FENSA. I mean, this is basically, it's kind of, it just basically overlays, and it does it all the way through this document. You sort of heard, and it made you think that the us member parties, so our state parties, like for instance England, Scotland, America, we'd have a right to sort of govern ourselves and decide for ourselves what we're going to do about something. But no, if you read that through again, quite clearly it states there that no, you're going to do as you're told, and it doesn't matter if it's going to be the same again. Like America's the same, England, Europe. Look at all the PPE contracts. Okay, and look at the PPE that we all see being dumped on waste piles and in tips and stuff like that, because it wasn't used. And the same's happening again. They are building up there because all these companies are already established. So they're always saying that, say for instance, I don't know, Argentina, for instance, has a big flu. They have a bad winter flu, so their flu season's particularly bad this year. It means every other country, whether they've got the resources available or not, every other country is going to be basically have their stuff taken and given to that country, and the country in will pay for it. This is not a case. I mean, this is what a lot of people don't understand as well. The accumulated wealth we all have is going to be transferred over because of our legal fictions, our houses, our bank accounts. Everything is in our legal fiction, so it's actually under crown copyright and crown authority in England. Same as in America, actually. It's under the Federal Reserve. They own it all. You just think you own it all because you haven't transferred it to a trust like they do. So when all this wealth gets transferred, it's what you do. So it's then going to be the back of taxpayers' money and everything that you do that's going to pay for this. Bill Gates and Klaus Schwab, they're not going to dip into their little piggy bank and help any of us out. It says it in this document over and over again. The member states will pay. So again, national debt. This is another way of basically, like we're getting with the national debt. It's basically financial slavery. It's just they are now slowly losing the fight with the legal fiction. They're actually trying to change government websites and that already now. So now they're trying to push us into another form of medical tyranny, basically. And people are walking into it.
You've got to push back from this. I mean, we said in part one, Nathan, when they're talking about jurisdictions and territory, we've told you that part one, you're all going to be in your little cities, your little smart cities, and each city will be independent. So you won't know what's going on in any other city. It's on a need-to-know basis. And like Oxford now, Oxford will only be told what's happening in Oxford. When they put the news on, it'll only be telling them what's happening in their 15-minute walk city. It will not be telling them what's happening in Manchester or London because it's on a need-to-know basis. You can't travel outside your 15-minute city, so you don't need to know because there's nothing you can do about it. You're stuck.
Well, exactly, and this is exactly like what you bring into it, because again, they're hiding it within their wording, but again, you see it here. They're saying again, it's like with the management systems. So this is like, as we're discussing with Wikipedia, Google, you'll only be entitled to the information that they deem you fit to have. So you can go on the internet, you can see, and they may say it's like, well, the rest of the country is completely down with this, so you're going to have to lock down your community to be safe from this. You won't know. There's no way of traveling outside your community to see anybody. You won't be able to phone your family members living anywhere else. Everything will be cut off. They will not. I mean, this is why they're doing all the smart technology, and they're doing it in this way. They are going to completely cut off, and they've always said it in part one that we did. You will not be allowed to alert other countries. You won't be allowed to alert other members in the country you're in. They're going to completely sever and manage all communications. So they're doing it so you can't all rise up and go against it, but they're going to do it under the guise of they've got to manage this so there's no what like they did with the pandemic. They don't want fear mongering. They don't want people telling the truth because then people may rise up or go against it, or they may go, well, this is another pandemic. I'm going out. So they're going to completely control every aspect of the information you have.
Yeah, and they'll be able to, like I say, you've seen how they can block your phones when you're on a protest.
Yeah.
So they've only got to do the same with the smart cities you're living in, and you'll only be able to correspond and talk to people in your 15-minute city. You ain't going to be able to, like me and Nathan probably would never be able to talk again to each other because I'll be in this city and he'll be in that one. You don't realise how serious
they can't chance it, can they? They can't chance it, can they? Because it's like, say for instance, in my 15-minute community, they're saying that's ground zero. That's the centre of an outbreak. They've got to lock you down because the whole of the country is now at risk. I can't phone you and go, no one's ill here. A couple of people with cough and cold, but that's about it, because they won't want that. Because then you're less likely to obey the rules and regulations.
Yeah, exactly. And this is what people don't understand. They don't realise how serious this is. It's going to affect your lives like you would not believe.
It's every aspect of your life. Everything.
Well, you'll be like, you know, you've got Featherstone prison, you've got Strangeways prison. These are just going to be prisons, but you don't know it because it's open air.
Yeah, pretty much.
And it hasn't got barbed wire everywhere like they have on prisons. But you're basically going to be living in little city prisons where you, without the right paperwork, etc., you ain't going outside of your little prison.
No.
If the thing that I brought up to you, Nathan, would that be of help to you?
Yeah. Yeah, it would actually.
Where that would allow you to maybe bypass some of that?
It would probably be the only way we can bypass it, to be honest.
Like I told you, I'll be on it.
Right, sweet. Right, thank you for that.
Away.
Much appreciated. We'll get on that. This is what we need to do internationally, really. We need to start getting people internationally to start networking before they get a chance to close our networks.
Yeah. But you've got to understand this, guys, that this isn't a joke. It's not something, it's going to be temporary. Oh, it's only temporary. No, it's not.
Look, you can see in the wording, they're talking annually. So they're talking at least 2 years in every single aspect. 4 years on average for most things. So this isn't a case of what I mean. It's like if you think the last 3.5 years, it's going to be worse than that. It's going to be worse than that. They've already trialled it, and we all went along with it. Well, most of you did. and you done it with bells on.
Yeah. Income tax was only supposed to be temporary, remember, when we had the Napoleonic War. And now every 5th of April, the government have to apply for a licence to carry on to charge you for the next year. But has it ever gone away? Now, is it that temporary thing that happened during the Napoleonic Wars? Is it still here, or is it was it temporary and have they took it away? No, there's no such thing as temporary with these people.
No. The plan for this one world government and this centralisation of everything has been planned for hundreds of years. This goes back to like 17, 1800s, and they're writing about it then.
You've only got to remember when he first started, Nathan, when he first come on. Remember, we just need just for 2 weeks to flatten the curve.
Yeah.
That's all it's doing with. And look where it's gone from there. So if you think these people are going to stop, ladies and gentlemen, you're deluded. You need to go and see a psychiatrist, because they're not going to stop. They're going to carry on, and they're going to grind you into the ground if you don't stand up for your children. And it's the children I'm sorry for, because it's the children who are going to suffer the most.
They will literally never know free. They will literally never know freedom. So they will never know. If they never know freedom, they'll never know any different. So they will carry on the life they're given. This is this is a gift we're giving these children, people. So this is where we're actually going to have to start doing something. Because as I keep saying, this is an international, this is a global document. So this is talking about all countries in the world. There'll be some countries that go against it, like China, maybe Russia. But pretty much we're talking at least 2/3 of the world will come under this. Literally 2/3 at least.
At least everybody in the West. This is for the Western world to begin with. Everybody in the West, if you don't wake the fuck up, you're going to end up you're going to end up totally controlled. You'd be like a robot, even if you haven't got any nanotechnology inside you. You'll still be a robot, because you'll only be able to go where they say, do what they say, and behave how they say.
Yeah, when they say and how they say. Well, this is the thing. This is people really got to start taking this like seriously, because again, this is all legal. This is completely unlawful. It's against both the American, the English. It's most constitutions that they're trying to go against. That's why they're trying to get you to go. They tricked you to go with human rights. That is a United Nations construct. They gave you you thought they was giving you rights that you already had. It's just they actually give you less rights, and everybody swallowed it.
Yeah.
This is why you've got to start using like alienable rights, or as in America, inalienable rights. Those are your true rights. Those are rights that cannot be bought, they cannot be sold, they cannot be transferred, and they cannot be denied. That is the law.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, what most people don't understand is we are the law. The people are the law. And until the law stands up and says no, you're agreeing to what they're doing.
Yeah,
exactly.
Right. And this is a whole art. This next bit, it's a whole article they've stuck in.
I would remind you of what Ronald Reagan said. Freedom is a fragile thing, is never more than one generation from extinction. It is not ours by inheritance. It must be fought for and defended constantly by each generation, for it only comes once to a people. Those who have known freedom and then lost it will never know it again.
No, exactly. And that leads on to the saying as well about treason. Murder may be the death of one person, but treason is the death of a nation.
Exactly.
All right. New Article 13A. Who led international public health response? And you'll see this. We'll probably only get up to 15 tonight, but you'll see this more and more as this document goes in. It just drags more and more away from you. So you think it's giving you certain things and you have a say, but the further we go in, the further they take things away. So it's all going to come down to them. For instance, this article. 1. State parties recognise WHO as the guidance and coordinating authority of international public health response during public health emergency of international concern and undertake to follow WHO's recommendations in their international public health response. 2. WHO shall carry out an assessment of the availability and affordability of the health products, there's a typo there, such as diagnostics, therapeutics, vaccines, personal and protective equipment and other tools required for responding to public health emergencies of international concern. including the potential increase in supply resulting from the surge of diversification of production, and in cases of expected shortage of supply. Who shall develop an allocation plan for health products so as to ensure equitable access to people of all states parties? 3. Who shall, in its allocation plan for health products, inter alia identify and prioritise the recipients of health products, including health workers, frontline workers, vulnerable populations, and determine the required quantity of healthcare products for effective distribution to the recipients across state parties? 4. Upon request of WHO, state parties with the production capacity shall undertake measures to scale up production of health products, including through diversification of production, technology transfer, and capacity building, especially in the developing countries. 5. Upon request of WHO, states parties shall ensure the manufacturers within their territory supply the requested quantity of the health products to WHO or other states parties as directed by WHO in a timely manner in order to ensure effective implementation of the allocation plan. 6. Who shall develop and maintain a database containing details of the ingredients, components, design, know-how, manufacturing process, or any other information required to facilitate manufacturing of health products required for responding to the potential public health emergencies of international concern? Within 2 years of the entry into force of this provision, WHO shall develop this database for all PHEICs declared so far, including for the diseases identified in the International Health Regulations of 1969. Go and read that document. I would advise anybody. In accordance with the provisions of these regulations, and in particular Article 13A(1), shall collaborate with other international organisations and other stakeholders consistent with the provisions of FENSA for responding to public health emergency of international concern. WHO shall report all its engagement with other stakeholders to the Health Assembly. The Director General shall provide documents and information relating to such engagements upon request of states parties. I mean, I don't know if people are actually getting what's going on there, but key words there. One big one there is stakeholders. Who are the stakeholders?
And the other big one for me, Nathan, was when you said early on in that part, it sounds to me like they are going to be the ones who are going to distribute stuff and the quantities of things depending on where you are in your health, like vulnerability. Like, are they going to withhold and only give it to the people who are more healthy, and the ones who are vulnerable, who are sick, sort of leave them to the wayside? That's how it sounded to me when you read earlier.
What we'll do is
I can't see.
Because what we're going to do is, because Stephen Lang's just popped into the back room. So what we'll do is, that's a lot to digest. I think what we'll do now is we'll have a discussion on it. So I'll bring Stephen in and we shall have a little chat, because that's a lot of information. Like I said, we're going to do this in bite-sized bits. So there's going to be quite a few parts of this. I'm going to try and do it so in a way people understand and they can go back and actually research what we're saying and the bits about it. I mean, it's not harming. We've been watching this happen with PPE contracts, the whole lot. Good evening, everybody. This is Stephen Lang from Restoration Radio. Say hello, Stephen. He's muted his mic. Your mic's muted, Steve. Okay. But it's like in that. I mean, there again, you're seeing the same thing. It's like this is all about contracts. So, again, it talks about the developed states parties, as they refer to them, are going to basically have money taken from them, and in the developing countries, they are going to have facilities built up to basically deal with the influx and the amount and stuff like that's needed. The problem with the vaccines, they was rushed through. There was a lot of assessments and data that should have been collected before they was even tested on humans, and it turns out now they wasn't. I mean, now we're going to be dealing with, and this, like it says, 2 years after implementation, which I believe is next year or the year after. We're now going to be dealing with facilities in developing countries. I mean, it takes, I think the guide is roughly 6 months just to teach a lab technician of the grade needed just about cleanliness of the utensils he uses. So that's 6 months just to teach somebody adequately how to and use the utensils. And they want to speed this up.
Shocking.
I mean, this is all about, as I keep saying, trade and stuff. But this is all. I mean, pretty much everybody should by now understand that. Take our government, for instance, the amount of PPE contracts and vaccine stakeholders we actually have within our government is immense. It's pretty much across the board. We're going to basically be paying these people money for masks when it's just a cold season. They are going to be literally ripping every single penny from everywhere they can. They're not paying for this. It's not their investments going into this country to pay for it. Their investments are the company. We pay for it.
Basically, that they're going to make a mint. They're going to keep printing money, making a mint, buying all the PPE with the money they've printed. The national debt's going to go up. They're going to get more and more billions in their bank, and then eventually they're going to bankrupt every economy in the world. That's basically what's happening here.
Yeah, pretty much. They're already back. I mean, the people got to understand this as well. I mean, City of London's pretty much bankrupt now. Most all the world banks are actually bankrupt. They went bankrupt in about 2000, 2008. We are literally seeing the dying throes of the world global banking system. But they are keeping the stock exchange and that afloat just about to cover what they're doing. And within a couple of years, they'll be able to completely write off whatever they're doing, and they will be able to place a whole new lot on us. So this is another load of debt, because there is going to be a massive wealth transfer. There is. They've already said this. It's got to be done through regulations and upgrades to your home. If you can't meet the upgrades to your home, it's going to be taken. That's another document. Me and Gary will touch on that. But this is going to happen.
Yeah.
Stephen, your mic's muted still, mate.
It's going to happen if people don't wake up and do the right thing. Because you haven't got, what you've got to understand is you're governed by consent. You haven't got to stand for this. If you had the backbone to stand up as a nation everywhere around the world, but it needs every nation to stand up at the same. Like when Brazil was up the other week, everybody should have been up, not just Brazil. It should have been a ripple effect.
Well, this is the thing. Pretty much every Western nation have been up in arms. There's been rioting, there's been protest across the board, whether it be for one thing or another. It all comes down to the same thing. It's this wealth exchange. It's what they're doing to our infrastructure, to our systems. It's complete tyranny.
Yeah. But if you imagine if that would have all been done simultaneously, instead of one country then another country, they wouldn't have been able to cope with it.
No.
You've got to get more organised when you're doing these things.
Well, this is the thing. This is what I think they've seen. This is why I think this was agreed in secret in November. I think they've seen the countries that are starting to uprise. They're seeing the people going the way they go. They've done many times in history that we don't get taught. And I think this is part of what they're doing. And you can see it in a document. This is why countries won't be able to talk to each other. Provinces won't be able to talk to another province, i.e. the 15-minute communities, because we will not be able to gather. We will not be able to muster the power of the people against this. Eventually, in the next couple of years, we'll have every single way of gathering together to actually communicate, to actually organise some sort of resistance. We're going to have taken away, because every single device in your home and that is going to record everything you say. It already does. And they're going to block the system, like with the courts. The AI decides is undesirable. You will be stopped from contacting these people. It says it in this document.
It's just about to know when people don't want to come.
Like I said, well, this is the thing. We're going to go through the whole document. It's going to take a bit of time, and people. I mean, we're going to take our time with it so we can explain it because people really do have to understand this. This doesn't just affect England or America. This affects every single country. So it would be Holland, Germany, France, no matter what. Any Western country is already. I mean, there's 193 countries already signed up to this, already agreed. Before, I mean, did any of us get asked this? Was there a referendum? Has there been any voting on this by the people? There hasn't. And the reason why there is no voting because the people don't matter anymore. This is all about the legal fiction. This is about the world of commerce, the world of fiction. It's about numbers. It's about letters on a piece of paper. It's not about the living man or the living woman. It's not about our rights or our needs or our wants. This is complete and utter corporation control.
We're living on a big farm and we're livestock, just like cattle and sheep. People will get it eventually. But that's basically what you are. You're a commodity.
Well, yeah, that was you as a commodity. You signed over as a commodity the minute the birth certificate was enacted by your parents. This is what a lot of people still deny, but this has already been proven. It's already going through the courts. This is another reason why they're changing everything because they've been caught out. It eventually was going to get caught out, and they are being caught out. But this is the thing. This is what people got to understand. You've really got to understand this. This is going to go beyond anything that you think is possible. And because you sit there and say, because you think it's like if you do a petition or you vote someone new in, that this is going to change. Well, understand this has already been agreed. They met in secret. 193 countries have already agreed with this. So unless you're going to use your constitution, unless you're going to use the rights and the laws that you're actually born with, there's no way of overriding this because there's no legal route around this. You will not vote yourself out of this because it's already been agreed. So unless you all remove yourself from the electoral roll, unless you all start upholding your rights, unless you actually get into 61 like you're meant to by law, this is going to happen. I admire everyone for doing it, but stand in the park, going on the marches, it means nothing unless you follow through with the legal or lawful paperwork. The legal paperwork is dead. We've tried every single avenue before we went most of our ways. The only way now is law, and it's your constitution. Because constitution, in both America and here, stops this.
That only works
but
when
until you uphold it. I mean,
full of morons.
Yeah, remember we haven't got your show, Steve, so mind your language tonight. But it's like we're over, Wayne. It's like America. It's like you must have noticed it over there, Wayne. It's like it's starting to rise up again, but there was a good decade to a decade and a half of lax of people actually stating their constitutional rights. I mean, it's coming back now because we've got auditors in both countries, but for a decade or more, there was such a lax in people stating their constitutional rights or even knowing them. It's caused a massive deficit in the younger generation. Still there, Brian?
I'm here. Yes, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking to Gary.
I know. I was sort of saying because it's happened here for more decades, but it's like even in America, I've noticed it's like in the last 10 years to 15 years, there's been a massive gap in people actually stating their constitutional rights and uphold them. I mean, we're getting auditors to do it now, but there's literally a generation that's fell behind knowing their constitutional rights.
Exactly. They're not teaching it anymore. And when they do teach it, they want to change it into something it doesn't say.
Yeah.
Like I was telling you earlier with the second Constitution, they want to make it so that the Second Amendment applies to hunting weapons, not protection from a tyrannical government.
I mean, this is the thing. It's like we struggle with trying to explain to people that we have the right to rebellion. I mean, a lot of people use the Human Rights Declaration. If you read the preamble of that, not only does it say that the rights are only to be taken into consideration, it actually demands the fact that you have the right to rebellion. It demands you do so under tyranny. But even in the documents that people actually uphold and recognise, they don't even recognise they have the right to go against this. But it tells you in their own document you have to do it in a certain way. But people are just they're impotent.
You have to, because the only way tyranny is removed, tyranny, corruption, and oppression is removed, is through rebellion. It's never going to be removed by people complying and consenting and acquiescing. It's just going to get worse and worse and worse when you do that. You've got to stand up to it. But like Steve says earlier, there ain't enough people seem to want to fight for the children, and I don't know why. It's beyond me. I can't see why people would just sit there when the children are not them. The children are going to, and the future generations are the one that's going to cop the biggest from all of this. Not them that are alive now.
Well, this is the thing. It's like most people at the moment, because they're. I mean, look at most self-employed, or anyone with their own business. They're not actually understanding that actually the Crown Corporation, because of the name that business is registered in, actually owns it. They don't want these businesses, but they want to centralise everything. So that's going to be big corporations controlling every aspect of your life. I mean, again, go back to the 1800s, like the vagabonds, for instance. That's like the Rothschilds, Michelin, Ford. They had designs to standardise everything. Even back then, I mean, I personally think they're more basing their idea on Pugin's industrialisation, personally. But they were saying back then that everything needs to be standardised. If everything's controlled from a central hub, it makes it so easier. And they've just landed up now, near enough completing their plan. They've just done, like Wayne said earlier, it's bit by bit. It's the fog in the water situation, and we are literally becoming to boiling point now.
People have got to wake up, or it's finished, basically. But there ain't no more you can do than keep sounding the alarm bells. It's whether they listen or not. If they don't listen, then, like I've always said, they'll reap up the sow, and it's no good moaning.
Well, this is the thing. Like I said, I think people are too comfortable, really.
Well, that's all going to stop very, very soon.
Yep.
Good evening, gentlemen. How are we?
Not
Good
bad,
evening,
self.
Stephen.
Good to see you on here, V.
Hi, Stephen. How's it going?
I'm good, mate. I'm glad to hear you. Good evening, gentlemen. Anyway, I'd just like to just say to you, what you're talking about is all obviously very true and very interesting. The hardest thing is to get people to listen, as you know, and to understand it all. We've been doing that for many years, as you know. I think really what it is, you've just hit the nail on the head a second ago. People are too comfortable. And that's the way you've all been made. Well, all of the people that are still feeling comfortable, that is. They're not feeling so comfortable now, though, because the bank rate is now 3.5% in this country. And I guarantee you it will go up to where it was many years ago, which was 5%. Right?
Yeah, it's estimated 5.8.
When everybody was happy with that back then, and that is why they all went out and brought mortgages. And then it all started to drop down, which made people buy more and more. And now the bank want to snatch some of it back. And it's about that. It's about putting that interest rate up. And they're going to do that anyway, because they now will use that. The government will use that as part of the reason to control inflation, right? That's why they can't give the nurses 19%, which is what they're asking for, which is completely ridiculous, because it will send this country into a spiral downwards into a recession.
Well,
right?
we are already in a recession, but it will literally
but it
bring
will
about a recession, and they'll get the blame. It won't be the banks. That's the thing.
Yeah, it will make it worse. That's right. And that they will say, oh, the banks are trying to do us all a favour, because they want to put it back to where it was years ago, and that was 5%. We've had it all too good, so they say. We've had it all too good, too comfortable. And that is why they want to start. They're snatching everything back, if you think about it.
It's like saying it, what goes up must come down.
And it will do.
Yep.
Sorry
will
about
do.
my avatar picture, by the way. I thought I'd use a picture of Graham Moore, just to remind you that, well, I've still got a sense of humour, basically.
Yes. We're trying to stay on track tonight, and we're trying to keep it clean.
Keep it clean.
Right. What I'll do is I'll read this last bit, and then we'll have a little chat, and then because it's getting on to need like an hour and a half, and like, people need this in chunks. So I'll read this bit, and then we'll chat about this bit, and then we'll see what goes from there. As I said, this just gets more and more sinister as the document goes on. All right.
I'll come back when the midgets come on.
Right. New Article 13A. Access to health products, technologies, and know-how for public health response. Immediately after the termination of a public health emergency of international concern under Article 12, the Director General shall make an immediate assessment of availability and affordability of required health products and make recommendations including an allocation mechanism to avoid any potential shortages of health products and technologies pursuant to Article 15 or 16 as appropriate. 2. States parties shall cooperate with each other and who to comply with such recommendations pursuant to paragraph 1 and shall take measures to ensure timely availability and affordability of required health products, such as diagnostics, therapeutics, vaccines, and other medical devices required for the effective response to a public health emergency of international concern. And we already know who's going to decide that. 3. States parties shall provide in their intellectual property laws and related laws and regulations exemptions and limitations to the exclusive rights of intellectual property holders to facilitate the manufacture, export and import of the required health products, including their materials and their components. 4. States parties shall use or assign to potential manufacturers, especially from developing countries, on a non-exclusive basis, the rights over health products or technologies, when the same is/are obtained in the course of research wholly or partially funded by public sources, and are identified as required health products or technologies. To respond to PHEIC, with a view to ensure equitable, timely availability and affordability through diversification of production. Upon request of a state party, other states parties or who shall rapidly cooperate and share relevant regulatory dossiers submitted by manufacturers concerning safety and efficiency. Again, spelling mistake. And manufacturing and quality control processes within 30 days. The dossiers received by a requesting state party shall be solely used by their regulatory authorities and manufacturers designated by the requesting state party for the purposes of accelerating the manufacture and supply of products or technologies, as well as expediting their regulatory approval. Requesting state party shall take measures to prevent designated manufacturers from disclosing such information to a third parties, except for the purposes of producing and supplying any materials or components to the manufacturers under a contract with non-disclosure provisions. 6. Who shall take measures to ensure availability and accessibility through the local production of required health products, including A. Develop and publish a list of required health products. B. Develop and publish specifications for the production of required health products. C. Develop appropriate regulatory guidelines for the rapid approval of health products of quality, including the development of immunoefficiency correlated protection, ICP, for vaccines. Establish a database of raw materials and their potential suppliers. Establish a repository for cell lines to accelerate, remember what they've already done, to accelerate the production and regulatory of similar biotherapeutics products and vaccines. So they're going to speed up the production of vaccines, which should never happen anyway. Review and regulatory update who listed authorities so as to facilitate appropriate regulatory approvals. G. Any other measures required for the purposes of this provision. 7. The state party shall take measures to ensure that the effectiveness of non-state actors especially the manufacturers and those claiming associated intellectual property rights, do not conflict with the right to the highest attainable standard of health and these regulations, and are in compliance with the measures taken by the WHO and the states parties under this provision, which includes A. To comply with WHO recommended measures, including allocation mechanism made pursuant to paragraph 1. B. To donate a certain percentage of their production at the request of WHO. C. To publish the pricing policy transparently. D. To share the technologies know-how for the diversification of production. E. To deposit cell lines or share other details required by WHO's repositories or database established pursuant to paragraph 5. F. To submit regulatory dossiers concerning safety and efficiency and manufacturing and quality control processes when called for by the states parties or WHO. I'm going to stop there because to number 15. I mean, are people understanding what they're doing there?
But when they're going on here now,
I just want to touch on some very key words there. Intellectual property. Go on.
I was saying when they're going on here about all this, they're going to set a percentage and they've got to be transparent and that. They're talking about to each other. They're not on about letting us know anything.
No,
that's very true.
This is what they're on. This is what they're on about intellectual property as well. Most people know this, but a lot of the upper respiratory diseases, certain bits like a lot of our patents. Now you can't patent something that's natural. The same what I mean, but what they're now saying is basically it's like the companies that are already formed. It's like Pfizer, Moderna, all these companies. They're going to protect their intellectual property over anything else, and this is going to be with non-full disclosure. So, part of our laws, whether people who call it freedom or not, part of our laws is full disclosure of any contract or of any action. They're actually doing away with that. So they're telling you in that section of this document that they don't have to tell you anything. They don't have to submit anything.
What does intellectual property mean?
Well, intellectual property is, for instance, if you are an inventor and you come up with an invention, that invention is your intellectual property. It's from your mind. So it's from your own making. Rather than that, than there's something like made mechanically or say it's from your own mind. So, for instance, we've had a lot of lab leaks. So, say for instance, there's a lab leak of say a bioengineered upper respiratory disease. For instance, let's just use that as an example. That will have intellectual property connected to it because that has been made and conformed by somebody. So that will be that company's intellectual property. They can then share that with other companies, but there will be a transfer of money for that, and there will be non-disclosure. So they don't have to tell other companies how they come to that or any side effects or anything that they may feel dangerous about it. They literally giving and taking away.
Basically, then they're not going to have to tell anybody what that leak was.
Exactly.
No. And they don't have to tell you how it come about or anything like that. Non-full disclosure is not part of any of this. So if there is, for instance, an outbreak, it's like you say, they don't have to tell you where it come from. They don't have to tell you it's man-made. They don't have to tell you anything. All you need to know is what you're told to do about it.
So clarity is limited then, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. This is what makes this document so serious, because people really need to start getting grips of this, because this is literally, I mean, in part 1, in the first 12, basically 12 amendments we did, 12 sections, it already says they've removed dignity and they've removed human rights. So if you was looking in the bits we've read tonight in part 2, they've actually removed dignity. So when they're talking about, for instance, whether certain people are going to get medicines and what rate of care they're going to get, they're talking about old people. They're talking about disabled people. They're talking about the mentally impaired. They're talking about people who they deem as worthy of actually getting access to these medical treatments. This is genocide.
The only thing they haven't put in there, which should be in there, is genocide.
Yeah, this is genocide. This is literally a blueprint for genocide. It is the way to make genocide legal.
Yeah.
And they are doing it. It's there already. We've got legal genocide within the document that we've just read alone. I mean, when we do the rest of it, it gets worse. As I said,
Well,
when
they've
we get
always
to the
done that
annexes, they
anyway.
actually have an example of certificate.
They've always
Pretty
done
much
that
it.
anyway. That's nothing new. When they put it all in wording that way, that is to stop anyone with any sort of legal backup to have a fight in court. All this wording that you're reading out is all really to deter people and to deter someone, or at least to hold people up that have some sort of legal knowledge that is likely to fight them with it in court. That's what it's all about. That is why wording is important. We should
Yeah,
use
but
it. You
Steve,
all
what
know
they've
that
done,
already.
Well, this
but what
is
they've
the
done in this document is they've
this
took
is
it
the
all
problem with
away.
this document.
You ain't going to have 2 seconds now. If you ain't going to have the right to challenge this in any court or anything, all your human rights. That's why we've been talking about inalienable rights for years. All these people have got under human rights. All your human rights is going to be took away. Your dignity, they're limiting your freedom. All this, you're not going to be able to challenge this because you've got nothing. They've took it all away.
Well, that can always be challenged in
Legally, there is
court,
no
Gary,
recourse.
because at the end of the day, some of these rights they're not man-made anyway. So when they turn around and say that they can do all this, it's a bit like sending people to Rwanda on the plane, right? There's
Well, they
always
can legally
someone
do
out
that.
there that's gonna contradict those rights. And there'll always be somewhere. It will be held up. It could be held up in court for many, many years because of it.
But that's the problem with this document. But that's the problem with this document. It takes away any legal challenge.
There's no such thing as a document that can take away legal challenge. No, there isn't.
Yeah, they can. They can't take away lawful challenge, but they can take away legal challenge. They've tied it up so it'd be a dead end.
Well, but legal and lawful are two different things, right? You should know that.
The problem
anyway.
but the problem is when we're talking about Crown authorities. So the Crown owns Parliament, the Crown owns the courts. So when you've got the Crown, like King Charles already basically agreed that this is all got to go ahead, and he's set his millions on it. So the government's already agreed it. So the court's got to go with whatever the government agrees. We're already seeing this in our court system as it is. I mean, it shouldn't happen, but we're seeing it. So when you're talking about Crown authorities and legal...
Then what about people that go to court and turn around and say, well, hang on a minute, we wasn't made aware of all these things that are coming in. It was all done under the carpet. So therefore, if people are not made aware of these rules, so-called legislations, therefore they become null and void anyway, because you have to make the people aware of it. You can't just bring something in and say, well, that's the way it is. You can't do that because people have to be made aware of it.
Well, this is it. Me and w.h.o were sort of touching on this earlier in the private conversation, and this is the problem with EU treaties and international treaties, because they have actually been doing this for about 40, 50 years.
Yeah, well,
they've already done all this legally, and we've agreed to it. It's like with the 15-minute community. It's like, look at Oxford.
Well,
if you read the document and everything with that, we've all agreed.
Yeah, but how can you agree to something you know nothing about? Right? If you're unaware of it,
ignorance is no defence.
No, not in a court of law, because you have to know about it.
That's what they're claiming.
That's like changing a job contract, right? If you're working for a company and they change your contract without your awareness, that is null and void. You can't do that. You can't just pull the rug from under people and say, well, I'm sorry, but we put this paperwork through, therefore you've got to abide by it. How can you abide by something you know nothing about and you've not been told about it?
But there you touch upon
court.
Yeah, but there you touch upon the very thing that this hinges on, because that would be a lawful challenge to breach of contract law.
Yeah, but it's a lawful challenge when you know nothing about anything. Listen, when they want to write all these documents up, right? It's all very well, but if you don't make the people aware of it, it's null and void, because you can't argue it. You've got no debate about it. You've got no challenge to it. You have to be made aware of it so it can be challenged. If you avoid that, therefore, it's null and void. People have to be made aware of it, which is like when people go voting, you get all that pre-election promise nonsense, right? But that is what it is. It's a pre-election promise. So you're given a manifesto, if you like, yeah, of what these people are going to do. So you vote for them. You can't just bring in laws without making the people aware of it. Where are you going to make people aware? How are you going to make people aware of this?
Well, you touched upon
On the
voting.
internet.
Well, you touched upon voting, so let's spring off from there. You said manifestos. Name me one government that's ever been voted in that's ever abided by a manifesto.
Well, none of them.
So
we know
legally,
that.
they can't be held accountable.
Yes,
And
they
it's like
can
with these
be held
things.
accountable.
Technically speaking, it is they are notifying people. They've been notifying people through treaties for many years. This document's out there. This is the thing. You're meant to source this information.
No.
Well, this is a change. This is a change. This is a change.
Like
no, it doesn't work. No, it doesn't work like that, Stephen. Exactly, but it does now because nobody's challenging it. And in one or two people challenge it, it's not going to do anything. We have to challenge it en masse. Until we challenge it en masse, this is going to happen because we're doing nothing about it.
What do you risk when you do something like that? When the government brings in something like that, or they try to bring in something like that, what is the risk? The risk is this. You risk civil unrest for a start. You risk the fact that you will be voted out next time. So all these rules and laws that they've put in can all be changed later on. It's a waste of time.
No more voting now, Steve.
There's no more voting.
This
document's taking it away.
After this,
in this document is telling you there will be no more voting. There will be no more elections.
Well, I don't know about that, mate, to be honest.
Steve,
and they tell you this document, it says it from the beginning all the way through. They're going to have a military response, and they intend to have a military response to any uprising.
This is
why this document is so important.
All over again, Steve. That's what this is.
Well, listen, what's going on in this country anyway is only history repeating itself anyway. If you know anything about history and you want to know what's going on in this country, all you've got to do is look at Berlin in the 30s, right? That'll give you a hint if you did know. But most people are unaware of it and don't give a monkeys about it anyway. So at the end of the day, it's like I said, you've got to get people out of their comfort zone, right?
Yeah. And that's what we're trying to do with these videos.
Yeah, but that's already happening, isn't it? They're already taking people out of their comfort zone because you ain't just got food banks now in this country. You've got warm zones, right? Where people can go and get warm because they can't afford their own heating. I've never heard of anything more disgusting in my life. If that isn't enough to get people off their backsides and go and do something, then I don't think anything ever will. You see, the trouble is with this country is it's got too comfortable and too lazy and too arrogant, too ignorant, and they only care about themselves, most people in this country now.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. I mean, people are starting to mobilise. They are getting off their backside, but it's the manner in which people are doing it.
I've not seen any.
Well, there's loads of people that stand in the park. There's loads of people that do marches and stuff out. It's just what's happening is you're not seeing them direct their energies where it should be. And that's done on purpose.
Of course it is, because you've got so much division in this country now, which is a deliberate act, as you know, because that's what divides people. Once you've divided people, you can control them. It's the same in the States. Well, Wayne will probably tell you that anyway, if he hasn't already. It's the same thing everywhere. Even in Europe, it's the same, right across Europe. It's no different. I'm not saying people out there are not like us. They are. There are thousands, millions of us like that out here. But the trouble is we're all divided. Although this internet brings people together, it also divides people, right? It's a tool that's supposed to be for good, and it didn't. It's worked against us. It opened up Pandora's box, mate. That's all it did.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the way, 2 seconds ago, Wait, on the subject of like getting the people actually to act in a certain manner, I mean, how do you see that happening in America?
That's a difficult question, because Facebook is doing everything it can to make sure that only one opinion gets out. They can effectively mute you. They can mute a viewpoint, and that's exactly I get muted all the time. I can post a joke that'll be seen and liked by lots of people, but if I put up anything that has a political statement to it, it can go weeks and nobody ever sees it. So the only way that I can
Exactly.
see you can do it is begin to hold. Back in the 2009, 2010, I was a very active member of the local tea parties, and we were bringing in speakers from across Florida and any place else that would come in, and we would have 100 to 150 people that would attend these meetings and listen to knowledgeable speakers. And I don't know if that would if you could do that again. I think the Tea Party was a one-time phenomena, but it got overtaken by zealots who wanted to have it their way and only their way. So now
Same happened here.
Process of communication is a problem.
I mean, that's why I think it's alternative media. It's basically, I mean, but then again, there's the problem because you're always going to have a lot more money thrown into the alternate version of what should be the truth. So again, it's about people taking responsibility for themselves, about the information they actually gather and what they're actually listening to. I mean, we all know by now, BBC, most media, I mean, every single media that you ever touch on, it doesn't matter whether it's internet, Google, Wikipedia, The Sun, the New York Times, it's all owned by five basic companies, like 5 families. It's all owned by them. So you're only ever going to get the side they want. It's like Wayne says, you're only ever going to, it's like Facebook, it pushes narrative. Twitter did until recently. TikTok, the whole thing, it only pushes one narrative. So this is where I think we're going to have to go back to like the levelers movement, really. It's sort of like we're going to have to reinvent the printing press. As difficult as that sounds, it's probably more easy than people think.
Like Steve says, we've spoke about this on Restoration, Steve, where the old-fashioned way, leafleting is going to be the way. Like you said, nice printing press, deep printing press. Everybody pull together, get the printing done, eat every household you can. That's the only way you're going to do it. Because social media...
And this is the thing. And this is the thing, it's money. Again, you don't need money. I mean, we proved this in CMW, like with certain bits. All you need is a community to come together. I mean, one person may only be able to basically print off 50 leaflets, but someone else will be able to print off 100 leaflets or 1,000 leaflets. And if the community comes together and has a few thousand, you can distribute that in your area and you've got coverage. It's about actually putting together and putting resources. It's not so much about money, doing GoFundMes or anything like that. It's about putting resources. It's about more or so is actually the biggest commodity we need to use is people's time. That's what a lot of people don't actually dedicate to this. They don't dedicate the time to read. They don't dedicate the time to research. And they don't dedicate the time to actually educate other people. A lot of people take information, they keep it to themselves. They don't spread that information. And that is something that we've got to start again. I mean, I kind of hark back to the days of like take the 40s and 50s where you'd see the housewives talking over the fence and literally one rumour could spread through a community within minutes. We need that back. But
what you need is what's lacking is leaders and leadership. Because what you've got now is a country full of followers. And there's two, like I said many times before to you, there are 2 types of people in this world, and there are leaders and there are followers. And unfortunately, what you've got now is a country full of followers. There ain't the leaders anymore. And that is what is lacking. Somebody who stands up and actually does it. And there were people like that a few years ago, but they've been silenced. One way or another, they got stopped doing what they were doing. You know, we did it years ago. And we made an impression, but it still got stopped, right? It went worldwide, but it got nowhere. And the reason for that, even though it went on mainstream media, you know as well as I do, the reason why really, because there was no follow-up. The follow-up didn't happen, and that was the problem. The idea was right.
The follow-up happened on its basis, like you say, it's the follow-up from the people. People didn't back it. People just sat back and went, well, I'll see you when you do it, I'll back it. But people don't realise it's like we have to do it together. I mean, it's like you say, it's exactly that. I mean, I still think it was very convenient that, I mean, look at the Dragons, look how far it's not just the Dragons, other people as well. Look how much headway we was gaining with alerting people and giving information to people. And then all of a sudden we have the new breed of the truth movement coming.
Yeah,
And ever
but
since
Nath,
then,
it's because
every leader we had before has
people.
been silenced.
But Nath, it's because people are happy to sit back and let somebody else do all the work. What you've got now is people that are complacent, right, and will sit there and be happy to let someone else do it because they don't want to do it for themselves because their lives are already under pressure. This country has put people so far down where every minute of the day they're only concentrating on their own lives, and they know that what's going on is affecting their lives, but they have no idea how to stop it, and don't believe that it can be stopped or even understand how it can be stopped. That's the problem, and that takes leadership. It takes someone to stand up and say, look, this is what we need to do. This is what we all need to try, and it will work, right? But to get people to believe that is extremely difficult now. And that's why you've got this
Don't we know
problem
it?
that we've got. In internet and trying to explain to people about stuff is not the way anymore. Leaflets, possibly, yes, because you can bung them through every door. You've got more chance that way. You might get someone's attention. They might actually take a few minutes and read it if you're lucky, right? But forget social media because that's never going to work now. Social media is just a tool that people use to do like TikTok videos and act the idiot because that's what they're interested in. They're interested in likes and making money that way. And that is worldwide now. Right? So to change that,
it's global.
You've got to
it's
change
global.
people's mentality, and that's going to take a long, long time. It won't happen in our lifetime.
There's two ways to change people's mentality. Either something drastic's got to happen that drastically impacts everybody so they have no choice but to change their mentality, or like you say, it's going to take. I mean, it has been happening for many years, but it's not been happening quick enough because, like you know, Stephen, Gary, Brian. I mean, look at the years we've been doing this and we've been talking. You take one step, and then you've got the opposition can take three. And people think it's money, but people think it's money, but it's not. It's people being active. If each and every single one of us, I mean, we're going about Article 61. Article 6, we can prove it. We've been in court. It's unrebutted. It stands in law. We can prove that. Now, if everybody actually spent, instead of constantly talking about the problems we face, because we're talking about secondary problems, third problems, I mean, eighth down the line, we actually started all concentrating on the solution for the main problem. That is actually our rights and law. To get our law re-established, as Wayne said earlier, it's our duty to keep re-establishing this. We've had in English history, that's why our constitution is built like it is, because we are constantly reaffirming and re-establishing our rights.
Well, I think
once we give up that fight, that's it.
Yeah. I think most people do understand what the problems are. I don't believe that the vast majority of people in this country are only interested in making TikTok videos, right? They're not. No. The vast majority of people do understand what's going on in this country, but they have no idea how to stop it or change it, and do not believe that there is a way of doing it. That's the problem, right?
But Steve,
so you've got to convince them that there is a way.
Yeah. And we try to do that every time we do a live is 61 because
I know you do, mate.
Article 61 is the solution. I can't emphasize this enough. It's the solution. We proved that concept when we went to arrest Carl. We haven't had any arrest before, during, or since because we did it all over.
And we actually got the police to back it with evidence requires proven.
The problem, I think,
and that's big teller. We actually got the police to back it with evidence required proven. That is the biggest test that anyone could have ever seen, really. Just because the system itself didn't take it up.
Everything is media driven now, right? No matter what you do, it is. Right, everything is out there and in your face now. It's media driven. So the only way you're going to change people is if someone has got the backing, if someone has got the money to be able to get out there and convince the media to put it out there. If you get a party out there which is likely to change things, or at least say they're going to, then you might get it. It's like there are break-off parties out there now, aren't there? Right? There are political parties, little ones that are out there in this country now. I can't remember what his name is. It's Lawrence Fox, isn't it? Right? Who runs one of them. Right? Now, what he's saying and what he's doing is exactly right. The problem is right, is will people trust him to make those changes? If they were sensible, they would, in my opinion, vote for him, right, to make a change, because he's totally different from what you got Labour or Conservative, which you can't get a fag paper in between them because they're both the same now,
No.
and they've been for many years.
I mean, the only
Let alone,
but
how
there
is
we
that
go back to the
democracy?
biggest
You
problem
got
of
a
all.
choice of one or the other, right? They call
No,
that
but this is the thing.
democracy.
This is why everybody actually needs to read through and understand this document, because there is no more democracy. they all 193 countries decided to do away with democracy in November. So voting for a political party is not going to do anything. It is a dead end, and people push down that way because by the time you realise it's a dead end, it will be too late. At the end of the day, it's going to come down to people actually taking responsibility for their own actions themselves and actually to act. This is going to have to go back to the
That's going to take a
grassroots.
while. That's going to take a while.
I don't know.
Because people have given up on that ideology many years ago. They don't take responsibility for their own actions. That's a proven fact. Because they're happy to sit back and to vote somebody into power to make those decisions for them, because they have no idea or concept of how to change it or to make a change.
This is why everybody needs to get this document out. Well, this is why everyone needs to get this document out there and get people to understand it, because once you understand that democracy is now done away with, there is no democracy, there is no dignity, there is no human rights. You understand you're only left with one option, really. You don't have any of the avenues where you can be lazy anymore. You have to actually act now. And this is the problem. If we had, and this is, I see so many people saying this now, it's unbelievable. Because I do believe the tide is turning. A lot of people say, so they do look for people who are leaders and stuff like that, all these people on Facebook or YouTube, stuff like that. Everybody's talking about the problems. Nobody ever talks about a solution. And people are starting to notice this now. It's like, when are we going to stop talking about the problems and start talking about solutions? So when all these people that have got their Facebook profiles, they've got YouTubes, they've got TikToks, when we actually start talking about solutions and discussing them, you will see people act. But again, you've got to then see people for what they are. I mean, you've got some people on YouTube, they're only just discussing grooming gangs. That was discussed 10 years ago. And people are pipes dragging their heels. You've got to change that mentality of the people that are actually trying to put information across.
It's got to be much more simplified. When you just release a document like you've read out, first of all, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to reconstruct it in a way that it will hit home. It's no good putting a document out where it's full of wording that needs to be explained, right? Because these documents are designed that way, so that you don't, and you get bored with reading it after about 2 seconds, because you don't understand what the wording means, right? So you've got to deconstruct it, and then you have to simplify it and explain it in such a way. And I'm sorry to say this, but it's true.
Which is what we're doing as we speak.
Because people don't understand legal stuff, right? You know, this is all written in legalese for a start, and it has to be explained.
It's glossary.
Most people cannot grasp it, right? So you've got to deconstruct it.
Well, this is why we're doing it this way, because we're trying to do that.
Yeah, well, that's a good thing. But as I say, if you want to do it on leaflets, how can you deconstruct that document into such a way where you can put it on a leaflet? That leaflet will be about 8 pages long.
But this is why leaflets get put out in stages. This is why it probably will have to be certain bits. But it's like, and they've made it purposely like this, because it's not just the articles, there's actually the annexes and stuff like that. So you'd have to kind of, and you can pretty much, if you was to really take like the wording and use it in its literal sense, you could probably take every article and put that down to a small paragraph.
Well, that's what needs to be done, in my opinion, if it's possible. I mean, that's even
this is
what
we're attempting to do. I mean, we're trying to.
I know you are, brother.
If people can start explaining this a bit more, and there's more other people who can grasp it, then we can get, like, for instance, we can get people that can put this on leaflets. We can get people to reduce this to manageable wording, and that is the key there. You hit the nail on the head, Steve. It's manageable wording. They use this glossary, this legalese, to befuddle us. because
Of course.
a lot of people do understand this, but in the English language, words could, depending on context and situation within a sentence, words can actually change meaning, especially if we're talking legal grammar, which most of us are sort of taught in school, but not taught that is actually legal grammar. So we're not taught the definitions.
I think what we need is someone who is a writer, someone who writes books. Now, I know someone.
I wonder who's that could be. Yeah, do you know what? It sounds familiar.
Who can construct a sentence in a sensible way that you'd understand. Now, I know someone not too far away.
Yeah, well, a few thousand miles away, but yeah. But
I mean on here, you know.
Thank you, Stephen.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
Well, that's what you need. You see, people who can write books like Wayne, right? They can whittle things down and make it more understandable, so that when you read it, you get it locked in your mind, so that you can actually picture what they're saying. Right? Only writers and someone who can write books and construct a sentence in such a way are able to do that. So that's where Wayne comes in. He would be good to be able to do that.
Funny you mention that, because I was actually going to try and approach this with Wayne, because I've read some of Wayne's bits, and he's a very good writer, very good, and the way he constructs things and actually presents it is remarkable. So I think he's one of the best people to do
that's where.
Personally.
Remember that old saying: "The pen is mightier than the sword."
Exactly.
Yeah. See, what we're going to do here, Steve, we're going to go through this document now, bit by bit, and then afterwards we're going to do a live on the document itself then, and just tell them exactly in layman's terms what's gone on in the document. But we've got to go through it first so people know it exists and we've actually gone through it all. Then we can put it all in one video in layman's terms and then send that to Wayne, and then he can do his stuff.
Because that's what we need. Because again, this is an international document. This is going to affect the global community. So we really do need other people from other countries, whether it be Rafi, other people. We need people to start coming together now, and we need a united front on this. So there will need to be translations. Yeah. There will need to be translations. There will need to be other bits like that, and it's going to have to be done.
Well, you need people with the right tools, and
exactly.
You know, if you're going to do the job, you need the tools to do the job. If you ain't got them, you ain't going to be able to do it. Sorry, Wayne, but I might have dropped you in.
That's right. I love writing.
I was going to actually approach it off air, but now you've done it on air.
Anytime. I love writing. I'm writing something every day, so it keeps me off the street corners. You know what I mean?
Well, that's exactly it, Wayne. What we need is someone with your passion to actually undertake it. That's what we need, and we need other people with the same passion to do the same. Many hands like workers. They make like workers. They say.
Yeah.
Well, all I can suggest is if you go through the document and then pick out the bits that you need to be deconstructed and put in a language that everyone will understand, then that might be a start. And then maybe sling it over to Wayne and he can put it together. Yeah. That's all I can suggest.
Well, this is what we're aiming with this, as Gary says. We're going to read through the document and then we're going to take article by article and we're going to reduce it to its finite points, basically.
But if you want to, we're going to do this in parts, Steve. So if you want, next time we're going to do the next one, we'll notify you.
Yeah, no worries, Gary. Always a pleasure to speak to you lot anyway.
It's been good.
It's been around for a long time.
We are going to wrap it. That's the thing. The old guard is starting to come back, which is a good sign. It is a good sign. But we are going to wrap it up. I mean, Wayne, is there anything you want to say on what you've heard tonight?
No, I found this very interesting. I kind of came into this cold and not quite sure what to expect, but I picked up on it quick enough, and I echo everything that you've all said. Stephen and I have kicked this around for a long, long time, and I know that if if you don't stand up now, you ain't never going to stand up again.
That's a fact.
Yeah.
No, exactly it. It is the
Well,
11th
you
hour.
need
People. It is
the only
hour.
thing
It is
I've
upon
ever
us.
the only thing I've ever known in my life is that at some point you have to utilise the right people. If you want to get the job done, you have to find the right people to do it. There are people that can pick stuff out, like you and Gary, on documents, and then you pass that on to somebody else who can deconstruct it and put it into another word. And then you get other people to put that word out. It's a ladder of construction, and it starts from the top and it works its way down. And that's how it always works. You eventually find the right people to do the job, and that is how it works. It cannot work unless you get the right people. And we've always had, the thing is, this is the silly thing about it, we've always had the right people, but it's getting everyone together to be able to, put it into effect. We've done it once before, like we say, many years ago, right? In a certain thing that we did a few years ago. That was successful, right? Because we had the right people at the time who all had their little part to play, and they did it and pulled it off, and it was successful. Where it lacked success was, in the end, there was no follow-up. It doesn't matter so much whether there were public interest. Public interest wasn't there because we let the job down. We let the side down because we didn't force that issue, because we didn't have a plan for what we were going to do after what we put into place. We only had a plan
I totally agree with that.
for what
totally agree
we
with
only
that.
had a plan
a few
for
of us
what we
tried
were
pushing
going
it,
to
but there was
do
no
at the time.
ground plan.
Yeah, we only had a plan for what we were going to execute at the time, which is what we did. That was successful, but we never had a plan for what we were going to do after that, right? That's where it fell on its
That's
arse.
exactly it. This is
So
where we're hoping to
now,
be ahead of the game this time.
yeah, if you want to change that and alter that, get the right people and plan ahead, which is what we didn't do before, in my opinion.
But it did go all the way to the CPS, Steve. That's the thing. The police did actually do the job on that one, because when we went to the CMW, Nathan and Susie and them, they found the document that Dave went in, and we actually got a crime number and everything, and we followed it right up
Yeah, I
to
agree.
the CPS, and then he got thrown out. They said to us, through lack of public support.
Yeah, lack
Wasn't
of
in the
public
public's
interest.
interest.
Well, then where was
Yeah.
our? We, like I said though,
But
Gary,
it's like
we
Stephen.
never
It's
had
like
a.
you said, Stephen. We had a plan too late. CMW had a plan. We tried executing it, but it was too late. It's exactly what you said. If we'd have had a plan
Yes,
from
and
the
we never
beginning,
planned
it would have
we
gone
never
further.
planned
But
far enough ahead. We never planned far enough ahead, no, right? And that was where it fell
no, I
down.
agree with totally.
So if we wanna do the same thing again, it's more than possible. It can be done. Of course it can.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, we've got to plan well ahead, so that for every eventuality. So, all right, some people will say, well, you can't actually do that because things might change. Yes, you still can. You can plan for it, right? You can plan for it up to a long way, really, in my opinion. But you've got to
It's
plan
called having
for.
contingency plans.
Yeah, and you've got to do that. If that's where we didn't do it before, and all I can say is, if we're going to do something like that again, you've got to plan well ahead.
But that's why though, Steve, 61 is perfect, because
Yes, it
61,
is.
it's there from beginning to end. It's a due process. It's already there for you. You just got to follow it step by step. That's why
Yeah,
61
the
is
three-step process.
ideal.
And it's made for the layman. It's not made in legalese. It's not wording that we can't understand. Article 61 of the Magna Carta 1215 was actually written so because people couldn't read and write back then. So it was written so somebody could go from town to town and read it out, and the layman would understand it straight away.
You've got a lot of people now that probably can't read and write. I mean,
that is true. We are getting more and more people.
Yeah, I think the problem with that is, yes, 61 is the answer. We've always known that, but right, you've got a lot of people growing up now that have no clue whatsoever what that's all about. right? They've never even heard of it. So
Hey,
it's
Judy.
yet again another thing that needs to be explained and simplified. You know what I think.
Because
I think what would be a great
saying that, I was
idea.
actually go on,
What would be a great idea is if you get a writer to write a book. You know, like they do computers for dummies. You know, I think what they have to
Yeah.
what Wayne would be good at doing is writing a book and 61 for dummies. That might be an idea. And then, you know, although it's named
Yeah,
that,
we get all
and
the
it's not to
information there.
be derogatory, right? But it will get people's attention, and they'll say, "Well, hang on a minute, I'm not a dummy. I'm going to read this book." Right? That's what it's about. You've got to find a catch thing. You got to. It's like a song. You know, you can write a song, and that song might be rubbish, but it'll have a beat that you can't help to tap your foot to. You know, you've got to get something where there's a
Yep.
catch, which people pick up real
It's
easy.
funny you say that. I was actually toying with the idea if I mean, we still have them where I did that lot, but I was toying with the idea of the old town crier actually reading out 61 in each town.
Yeah, well, you could do. I don't know, mate. I don't know. I just think at the end
Or
of the
somebody
day,
with a bell with a very loud voice that could do it. I mean, it's the way it's done. It's about, it's like you say, it's about, a lot of it is because it needs to be simplified. The process is simple. It's a 3-step process. The writing in Article 61 is a simple writing.
If you like,
it's getting people to actually acknowledge that. That's the hard part.
Someone who can write a little guidebook, that would be good, in a pamphlet version, if you like, or a book that's only about 100 pages, if that. You know, and that getting posted through somebody's door.
I mean, I've managed
something
to try years into some little bits that I've done in court and stuff like that. I mean, someone away and can take what I've done and that's all Wayne's quiet now.
It would be good. It would be good if it could be done, and I don't see why it couldn't. The only thing
this is the thing. This is good. This is about people.
Yeah, but it would take funding.
And to get a start of something could be big.
Produce something like that is not for free. It would cost money, and you can't just suddenly turn around and say, "Well, we can produce this booklet, if you like, which explains everything in layman's terms." Where people will understand and have an interest in it, because they will then be able to read how it is actually affecting their life. They already know that certain things are going on that are affecting their life. You do that every day when you go shopping. You can understand how it's being already affecting your life because you're paying double for what you used to pay in the shops for everything. You're paying high fuel prices, etc., etc. The bank rate's going up. How is it all affecting you? How comes everybody now are coming out on strike? They're coming out on strike and making silly demands. That is all politically driven. It's politically driven.
Exactly.
It's all the unions that are bringing people out.
It's exactly what me and Gary were saying when we was doing part one. The parables was what was happening in this country, in England, in 1215, when it actually brought about Magna Carta. To what is happening now, they're so similar. I mean, you bring in Magna Carta 1215 and Carta de Foresta 1217. What the reasons why them two documents actually happened is exactly what's happening today.
Well, no government.
Just in a different way. Same chocolate bar, different wrapper.
Yeah. Well, this has
I'm
all
going to
been
have to wrap it up
before.
in a minute because we are reaching that magical time.
I'm going to leave now anyway because I've got about 5% left on my phone battery. So thanks for letting me on, guys, and have a good evening. And
thank you for coming on.
Christmas if I don't speak to you all before. Have a good Christmas, all of you.
Thank you for coming on.
If I don't talk to you all again soon before it. And you,
thank you for coming on. You made some very good points that people have to really think about.
I'll catch up with you all again soon, no doubt.
Merry Christmas.
We'll let you know when the next one is, Steve.
No worries, Gary. Cheers, mate.
So
have a good one out there, V. I'll talk to you.
Take care, Stephen.
Take care, mate.
So, yeah. So we'll wrap it
Is
up
there
there then,
anything you want to
Nathan.
leave us with, Wayne?
No, I would
Before
be.
we
I
go?
would love to. I would love to be helping you with a book.
Yeah, not a problem. And we'll let you know when the
I mean, I
next
think we've
party
got a
is.
direction we're going in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for letting
So
me
we'll have
come
to get
on.
on that.
Give my.
I know.
give
Thank
my
you for coming on again.
I don't know if you can hear me, but I just say thank you for letting me come on and talk.
No, thank you for coming on again. Some massively relevant points made by yourself tonight, and so that is a good conversation. And hopefully, people are actually starting to take this on board and letting it sink in. And we're going to actually start moving towards solutions. I mean, I think the start of something actually happened tonight. I mean, it's now down to us to actually make sure that momentum keeps going.
Yeah. And we'll let you know when we did part 3.
Thank
Wayne.
you. Thank you. I appreciate it so much.
No
Take
problem,
care,
bro.
Oh, definitely. All right. Anything else you need to say before we go, Gary?
No, just thanks for tuning in, guys, and to stay with us to the end, and then we'll put it all, like say, in layman's terms, and then Dwayne is going to help us with the paperwork. So it's looked positive tonight. So that's the main thing. We've got to focus now.
And hopefully we may be able to get some more people from different countries, because like I said, we're going to need translations. We're going to need a group effort on this. So hopefully we can get some more pages, maybe Rafi and a few other people from different countries to come on, so they can all sort of join in this little cooperative we're starting to build. Hopefully this will start to have momentum, and we will move forward with this.
Yeah, and we need you backing people. We need everybody as well. Once we get all this sorted, we need people in 61 more than anything. If you love your children, now's the time to get into 61. And same in America for you guys, I suppose, for Wayne. If people love the children, they've got to start uniting. Simple
I
as.
agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
You know, because you could sit there doing nothing, and then the next minute it's too late.
Well, let's start concentrating what we can all agree on, and we all hold dear, like our fundamental principles, and let's start doing away with political views and things that separate us.
Yeah, exactly. This ain't about whether you're left or right, whether you're Conservative or Labour, or whether you're Republican or Democrat. This is to do with you're all human beings, you're all humanity. You've all got children that these, whichever side of the coin they're on, they're all in it together. They're all working together, and we've got to do the same to stop it. Yep. They're relying on us.
We are the many, they are the few.
They're relying on the division with us. Once we can get rid of that division and realise we all bleed the same and everything else, and we've all got children that have got to grow up that don't want to be enslaved. Once we lose that and we all unite, these people know that it's got problems. And that's basically all we got to do. That's my opinion anyway. This ain't about, like you said, it's not about you where you stand politically, it's where you stand morally.
I'm down with that.
So if we can start pushing that and get that out there, and then maybe start getting traction in the States, try and get like you say, try and get Rafi on, get traction in the Netherlands and places like that, get more people on board. That's how it's going to grow.
Yeah.
But people need,
this is where,
need something to focus on.
Exactly. I mean, I think we've kind of got the path we all need to be focusing on tonight. I think the four of us have bashed our heads together. I think we've got a path to go on. It's just now whether people can put the egos aside and tread the same path, really, isn't it?
Yeah. And like you've hit the nail on the head as well earlier. You ain't going to do this legally because they're shutting everything legally down. There's going to be no voting, etc., etc. This has got to be done lawfully and constitutionally. we're using your unalienable rights, etc. This is how this has got to be dealt with. It can't be dealt with any other way, because you ain't going to have a legal argument, because you've shut it all down. So
Exactly.
this is it. This is it now. It's got to be done that way. We know which way it's got to be done, and we've got to get everybody on that page.
Well, on that note, I think that should be the entire thing. Everyone's got to start coming on the same page, right? Thank you for all tuning in. Thank you for coming on for Wayne, and definitely we'll be having Wayne on for the next one, Stephen, and we'll organise some more people come on. Thank you for tonight, gentlemen. It's been good as usual. Very productive, actually, I'd say. Thank you for everybody that's tuned in and listened. Thank you everybody for commenting in the chat. Please spread awareness about this document and what needs to be done as far as wide as possible. It actually does all boil down to you and your actions as well. It's not just us. You have to actually act the same amount. You have to take responsibility and get this out there. We have to start working amongst ourselves.
Yeah, and spread the message of 61. Don't forget that. That's what we've got to do it under. In this country, anyway.
Exactly. That is the way we take our it's different our show. So we take our filthy ways, the way how we take our sovereignty and our power away from. It's like the same in America. Yeah. We have the same similar sort of way of doing it. We take our fealty away from the powers that be. It means it's not in our name. So once we do that, it's no longer in our name. They have no power. If you take our sovereignty away from them, they have no power base.
I would imagine in America with the Wayne, etc. It would be First and Second Amendments would back each other up for them to do it with those two documents.
Yeah, they're the precursor. They're pretty much underpin everything that they need to do. Yeah. But they have within their constitution the way to overthrow power and that as well. So I mean, we've got similar sort of ways of doing it. Is to overthrow a tyrannical power, and we actually have that. And like you say, Wayne can sort of correct me on this if not, but it is with I think it's within the first 5 parts of their constitution that actually give them everything they need to actually overthrow tyrannical governments.
Yeah. Because
a lot of people don't understand this, but the American Constitution was built because they was trying to overthrow the tyranny of Great Britain. The British East India Tea Company, as it's better known.
Yeah.
All right. On that note, we'll leave it there because we're sort of like getting to that point. Right. Thank you for everyone for tuning in. This has been with Wayne w.h.o, Gary Clark, Stephen Lang, and myself, Nathan Kirkton. Good night, everybody, and we'll see you for the next one. Look out for the notifications, and it will be put out when the next one's going to be. So please look out for that, and please tune in. Thank you all for tuning in. Good night, everyone. I've just got to turn out.